Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of July 14th, 2014. Welcome to the site to you new members. Really, truly welcome to the site and welcome back to the old members, of course. The Ask Videomail is your chance to get your question in character animation. What's that word? I've never said it before. Or performance answered in a video just like this one, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it, so please send your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions I do, and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and it is the best way to get the most out of the site. A little bit of a different setup, and I'll tell you why I did this. Okay, first of all, I feel like you can see me a little bit better if I back up and I do a little bit of, oh wait, you know what? I messed up. There we go. Got my video light on. There we go. Now we can see. I feel like you can see me a little bit better if I back up and I try to perform something like that. Also, my mic is front and center right now. Webcam is on its own thing, so if I wiggle the okay, well, it's touching back there. All right, it's not totally on its own thing, but hopefully you won't have, like if I wiggle, not that monitor, this monitor. Okay, all right, we're gonna get, all right, I'm gonna take one more look. All right. Work in progress, guys. Work in progress. Anyway, I'm always trying to improve the quality of the videos here. Hopefully that you, if you think that this is an improved setup, you leave me some feedback because I am interested in feedback, of course. Also, video quality is an important part of the training here, so I want to always improve that as well. We are in the first week of Collabs, started this week. Started today, actually, and I'm very excited to say that it is going to be a fantastic course this year. If you missed it, that's okay. There'll be a chance. We'll do another one, but we appreciate all your support. I released a few weeks ago a video talking about sort of the state of the industry and how movies are made. That's on YouTube. If you also go to my Facebook page, you can see that thing. I still appreciate all the likes and shares and the comments, the feedback that I've gotten from that. Some people have had some really good ideas and some very interesting feedback on that video. So if you have second, maybe you should go watch that and give me your feedback, and we can open the discussion. It's only going to be productive and better for everybody if we are discussing this. So thanks a lot for checking that out. But today's question is interesting because I feel like it goes sort of hand in hand with what I was saying in that state of the industry or how films get made video, in that some people are not, so if you don't want to be all entrepreneurial and you don't want to be all, sort of like drive the industry, you just want to kind of just, get a good job and work hard at it and do well, it's even that is sort of like a monumental task. And there was a revelation last week that there was a wage fixing scandal going on between Lucasfilm, DreamWorks, and Pixar, and it's pretty shameful what's been going on. And this question sort of goes hand in hand with that, and sort of what I was talking about last week with the sort of state of the industry. So check it out. Thank you. I hope I gave you enough time to read that. If not, go back and pause it and you can read the question. But I read it at a normal pace, so hopefully you guys all got that in there. Basically what this question kind of taps into is the evolution of the industry as a whole, and how like any and all industries, as the talent pool grows, there is going to be more competition. With more competition means that you have to distinguish yourself. And that's what I would say is the real answer to this question, is to distinguish yourself. What does that mean? That means having something special or extra that you can point to as being like sort of all your own, and that nobody else can really claim. That's very difficult to do, but not impossible. The one way that I think that you can distinguish yourself, sort of very, not easily, but a very cut and dry way to distinguish yourself in animation, is to have a short film and to have that short film win some awards. It's literally called a distinguishment, or an accomplishment. But really, I mean, there's really no denying when you have a short film that audiences have seen, and especially if it wins like an audience award or even like a best animation at even a small festival, it's fine. If you have that kind of distinguishes you as somebody that is more than an animator. You are a storyteller, and that's what these companies really are looking for, especially the big ones. They're no longer looking for somebody that could push the buttons. Remember, I've told this story many times that when I started, there was basically a program up at ILM that they took like a dozen or so of the top CalArts grads. They moved them up to San Francisco for I think it was 8 or 10 weeks. And if they could, and this is a quote, if they could learn the computer, then pretty much they had a job. And a lot of the animators that I knew and bumped into later in my career got their start at ILM in that program. I wasn't there in that program. I was doing something different, but that program was going on at the same time. But think about that. Learn the computer. Back then, it was so daunting a task to technically figure out how to get you what's in your head into the computer, that if you could, then you basically had a job. Nowadays, you have to know Maya back to front. Well, for animation at least, there can't be anything that you can't animate. There can't be anything that really scares you or whatever. And that's the bare minimum. Those are the lowest level requirements, the prerequisites for getting a job. And then it just goes up from there. Previous experience in the industry being the catch-22, the big one that makes it so that a lot of people are barred from these good jobs. Again, just imagine you are in a sea of resumes and demo reels. Pardon me. And you want to stand out. Well, then stand out. And there's no easier way, not easier, I shouldn't use that word. There's no more cut and dry, I guess that's the best way to say it. There's no more cut and dry way to show that you are a thinking, not just thoughtful, but emotional animator by the way that you move audiences. It also shows that you are... you have great instincts in terms of directing and camera work and story and following that narrative thread, okay? And an animator who can animate absolutely anything in the world, but they need a ton of direction. I mean that's not really somebody that's going to be very cost effective to hire, and probably they won't get that job, okay? So basically it comes down to distinguishing yourself and rising above the rest. And it doesn't necessarily, I'll caveat all this by saying, that doesn't necessarily mean that the animation in that short film is better than all of the other animation that's on the demo reels that these people are looking at. Quite the opposite. I do believe, because I feel like I've done this. Let me verify that. Yes, I have done this. Actually, I can think of one person that I did this with. Made sort of an exception for somebody whose animation was good. Granted, it had to be good, but it wasn't the best animation of anything that I saw, and it was their short film. And I thought to myself, well, this is a person that I want to work with. I think this person has got a good idea and good point of views and can take direction and can work with me very closely, and it'll work out. And it did work out. So that's what I would say. To not get fired, that is a question that you know how I'm going to answer this. Come on, you knew what I was going to say, right? It's workflow. It's workflow. The only reason that you would get fired right off the bat from any animation job is if you sit down and start working and what you're creating looks nothing like what's on your reel. Now that would lead them to suspect that maybe like you stole the work on your reel, or probably more likely you took a huge amount of time on your reel and it was a huge struggle to get the animation to that point. That your reel is not representative of the animator you are. You're capable of that animation, but as an animator, you are not your animation. You are not what you've done in the past. You are your workflow. So you need to know and be sure and confident that when you send an animation reel to somebody and they watch it, that you could recreate on a normal schedule, you could recreate each one of those shots that's on there. All right, nothing should be like lucky. Nothing should also be, you worked on a single shot for 6 months. Okay, because that is not representative of the animator you are, because that is not your workflow. Okay, so the only way you're ever going to be positive that is your workflow is by doing a volume of shots. Okay, so that's why things like the Anim Gym, or if you want to do it on your own, little like 48, 72, 96 frame, like under 4 seconds, these tests and these really short pieces are fantastic, because it not only can be, if you do really well on it and it looks fantastic and beautiful, it not only can be something that you put on your demo reel, but it gives you even practice on your workflow. The more of these you do, the more of them you'll have to put on your demo reel, and the more your demo reel will be representative of your current workflow, of how you can do work right now. Then you'll sit down and they'll give you a shot, and most shots on anything, be it a commercial, TV show, or feature film, are between like 3 and 5 seconds. So they'll give you this little shot that is exactly like the tests you've been doing, and you'll bang it out in a week. And it'll be done, perfect polish, look exactly like the things on your reel, and then they'll do it again the next week. You won't get fired. But again, you sit down and you just start working on this thing, and it looks like it's going to take you 6 months to finish it. Well, you kind of blew it, and I have to say I would fire you if that's what started happening on your work. Okay, so and then the last part of your question, like, you're an animator and a musician. I'm assuming that you mean by that you take time to practice an instrument and you're not animating 24 hours a day. Some people are, you can't think in those terms at all. Just completely throw that away and don't think about your improvement or your skills in that regard anymore. And here's why. Some people will practice for 10,000 hours at something and they will be expert level. Some people will practice for 1,000 hours and they will be master level. Okay? And then some people will practice for 20,000 hours and they will be like intermediate level. Okay? The amount of time that people put in, you have to understand that somebody can always put more time in, but the things that are going to make you unique and make you a person and keep you sane and also kind of influence your work, you have to keep in your life. Okay? So if you think to yourself, well, I have to give up the guitar, like I can't be in this band anymore, or whatever it is, anything that you're into. No more intramural volleyball on Tuesday nights because I should be animating. It is the things that is your life experience that is going to bring that flavor and that depth to your animation performance choices. And you just got to imagine, I know you'll agree with me when I say, just imagine someone that all they ever did was animate. Then they would be making just the most bizarre performance choices, because they're a person that wants to sit alone in front of a computer 23 hours a day, and they don't go out, they have no friends, they this is all they do. How would they ever make any performance choices? Animators are typically very outgoing people. They're typically gregarious. They typically make friends easily, especially with each other. This is like the spice of life kind of stuff we're talking about. You take all of that away just because you think that you need to practice more to compete with people. That's a fool's errand, man. You're never going to get anywhere if those are the terms you're putting it into, because it just so happens that the person that's sitting next to you at the studio might have picked up Maya and like in a weekend, and in 3 weeks was like pulling down the gold medal at 11 Second Club. That might just be who they are, okay? And you will spend a lot more than hours of your day trying to just do as much animating as somebody that you're afraid of losing a job to, okay? So I wanted to just give you all that advice, all right? So, and I just want to conclude this by saying, sort of like wrapping it up with the wage fixing thing. We don't have a lot of control or influence or anything when it comes to these kinds of shenanigans. This is the instance in which having a union that was ubiquitous would definitely be a much better thing. Unfortunately, though, there's probably not very much that's going to go on because these shops are mostly non-union, and it doesn't matter to them anyway. So really nothing is probably going to come of this. I would say this, though. I never worked at Pixar or DreamWorks, and if I had, though, I would say that probably my wage, when they talk about wage fixing, what they're talking about is other companies not offering higher wages to previous employees or current employees of other companies. And all that kind of depends on to work is for you to kind of like agree to it. If everybody, like, sometimes when like I'm in gridlock and there's no accident or anything, I'm just thinking to myself, you know what? If everyone just said like, okay, we're not going to switch lanes, no changing lanes, and we're all just going to floor it at the same time, like the traffic would be going 70 miles an hour. Like, why don't we all just do that right now? There's no reason to be slow. Why are we all so slow? You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing with this. If everybody decides that, if you're an animation supervisor, you should make this much, and nobody works for less than this much, then it would be fine. And that's basically what a union is supposed to do. It's supposed to step in and make sure that there are minimums, and those minimums, raise and they go up depending on like how much money the films are making and all that stuff. But technically, it's not absolutely necessary for a union to be around or strong for that to happen. We can all just demand it. So I know I've said this before, and I know it's hard for people who are wanting to break into the business, but just have a little bit more like respect for yourself, and don't do animation for peanuts, especially if you're sitting alongside somebody and you're doing, the same kind of work. Like, I cringe when I think about like all the temp animators that sometimes come in and all they do is they work on crunch time, and that's a really tough job because of the hours and all that stuff. And then I also know that a lot of these people, it's their first job, so they aren't negotiating really strongly, and they don't know how much to ask for. So anyway, I guess just my point is that there are a lot of broken parts to this business, and some of it is our fault, and things that we need to fix with ourselves is to value ourselves enough to not be taken advantage of like this, to this extent. A strong union around would have really really curbed this kind of behavior, but also really self-assured and business thinking and professionals in the industry would curb it as well. So, at any rate, appreciate the question. It's a good question. I thought I'd just kind of answer it because of all the talking about the industry itself that I've been doing. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have more questions, there's the address. Send them to me, and I will go through them and answer them if I think it'll help everybody. It's been a pleasure. I'm Kenny Roy. Thanks, and as always, rock on.